Hey everyone, Internet teacher book reader here. Today I want to talk about We Have Tired of Violence, a true history of modern memory and the fight for injustice in Indonesia by Easton. Now, our capitalist world has always had excuses to try to combat anti-capitalist sentiment from Red Scare to McCarthyism to the Jakarta method. Nowadays, because of how fast information can travel, fortunately, their censorship towards people who can educate well about anti-capitalism is limited to trying to ban them from appearing on mainstream media, or at least trying to show only the most cynical side of them, like what they did to Greta Thunberg, for example. She was a liberal favorite. When she first became a climate activist and made her appearance on media, she was a kid who is angry at the world that she is given and asks for change. A young child who they can use to launder their image without actually doing anything to combat climate change. But she grew up and became more aware of this because what the leaders kept saying and what she is seeing just does not match at all. She became more aware that Western world leaders won't actually do anything that can jeopardize the established power structure that they have. They won't change how the oil industry works, they won't change how food production is done, they won't change the military industrial complex and their forever war practices. And as she started to become more and more aware of this, she changed her angle to fight to go against that capitalist system, and they responded with trying to push her as far away from the public eyes as possible, which is why a lot of people are still not aware how much she has gone in and out of prison across the years, even at the young age of 22. But while the media treatment of her is as shameful as that, it's still not as bad as some short decades ago where any anti-capitalist figures were being eradicated in some of the worst way possible. I mentioned Jakarta method at the start of the video, a method of killing and disappearing people that are barely suspected of anti-capitalists, and a lot of this allegation is not based on reality at all. This eradication goes across the globe from the 50s to early 2000, and for the case of this book, the target of this eradication is a man from Indonesia named Munir. Munir's wife Suciwati is a Muslim that converted to Islam from Christianity. It is from her father that she learned a lot of the history of the atrocity of the Indonesian government. We have tackled that on this channel in detail when I covered the Jakarta Method book, but how Indonesia became the country that it currently is was because of the event that took place then. In 1965, a disgraced military member named Suharto led a Western-backed coup against the current president at the time, Sukarno, who have at the time started to embrace more and more of anti-Western value in his presidency. The genocide estimated to have killed 2 to 3 millions under 1 year, and Suci's father's friend was among those millions of death and disappearance. From Suci's father's personal story, we and also Suci knew bits of the atrocities that was done to the Indonesian people by Suharto, his people, and the Western imperial power that is backing him, which we knew more now thanks to a few CIA declassified documents. It's not even the leaked gun that came from whistleblowers, but from CIA themselves confessing to their crimes after decades have passed, which most people won't know because they knew that people are mostly getting their knowledge of history through viral news and media only. Suci also grew up at a time where Indonesia economy is starting to turn to neoliberalism that came from Milton Friedman, so she is also aware that the government and the corporates that they back are all trying to exploit the labor of their worker. Seeing this hypocrisy is one of the reasons why she decided to quit her job as a teacher, since she can in good conscience not teach the kids about what is happening. She started to work in various factory works and also tried to form an official union after work to try to get the workers' right, like decent pay and decent work-life balance, like a couple of days off. But she is doing all of that mostly alone while also doing her job. It is during this time that her friend recommends her to check out some non-governmental organization that at that time have been popping up despite the ruling power oppression. She is asked especially to go check out the LBH organization that is trying to give legal aid to the poor so they have at least some fighting chance in the messed up court of law in Indonesia. It is here that she first met Munir. Now, unlike Suci that was more aware of the government corruption from learning history from her father so she can see the effect of those corruption easier, Munir was the opposite of Suci before he joined LPH. He lost his father as a child from a car accident and his mother was too busy trying to raise 9 children including Munir. So like many youth without educated guidance, he became an extreme hardliner nationalist. He debated people who criticized the government in any shape or form. He even carried a knife in his background in case he needed it to defend his country. But as he grew older, the people he debated also grew older, unlike some assholes from America who kept staying at college. So the people he debates started to be more knowledgeable and make more sense in the debate. He started to have doubts in his belief. It helps that he always have a sense of justice that does not like to see injustice. So he started realizing that what he is being told about his country and what he is witnessing is not matching. He eventually started reading Nukolis Majid or Jack Nur's writing that shows him that the Muslim teaching he believed should be used to fight for the oppressed instead of being used as a tool for oppression. He then found another book about Chile's coup that took down its progressive leader Allende using the Jakarta method, the genocide that Suciwati learned from her father. Inspired by those two readings, he went almost every day to Pentol cigarettes factory in Mercosono to interview the workers there for almost 6 months until he became familiar with them and they even invited him to organize a worker strike. He agreed to help with the strike and joined them. And it is when that strike was met with state violence that he recognized that the president he idolized is not who he think he was. Recognizing his limitation as a person and not wanting to work as a lawyer that will be fighting against the working class, he decided to join the LPH in Surabaya and quickly gained their trust and recognition through his wisdom and dedication. Eventually, he met Suci when she walked in to join the organization, and after working for a while, they decided to start dating. Not long after that, Munir worked on his first major case in Surabaya to get justice for the murder of Marsina. She was a worker in a watch factory that helped organize a strike when the factory refused to raise the wage to the official minimum wage. The worker won and they got their rights for the wage among other demands, including no retaliation from the factory. But the next day, the leader of the strike were arrested for being communist, and when Marcina went to check on her friends, she went missing and was found dead 3 days later under a tree with obvious traces of assault, including injuries that show sharp object being inserted in her vagina. The police tried to swipe this as random murder that is not connected to the strike, but Munir filed a motion with 20 other NGOs to investigate the murder. The case goes big enough that it went international, so when the army couldn't just brush off the issue anymore, they arrested the owner of the factory and some workers to be put in trial. In the trial, the arrested worker confessed that they are being forced to take the fall of the rape and murder, even showing signs of torture on their body. But it is a sham trial, so those workers were arrested while the soldiers that are the main suspect went scot-free. It is this case that made Munir aware on the limitation of advancing human rights through the courts. Their case went international, even going to Geneva, but nothing was achieved. But he did not give up. He continued to fight along with Suci and eventually they got married, moved to Jakarta and have kids there. It doesn't take long until Munir got involved with Suharto's state violence in Jakarta directly, where twice Suharto is kidnapping members of party opposite that is mostly made by students that are raising awareness to the rising inequality that is being covered by the usual GDP index bullshit. Eventually, he founded a new group under the name of Contrast to help cases that are more extreme like this and Marcina. The group focused on helping victims of the government, especially those that were kidnapped by the military that often operates in plain clothes. And it helps that the group was made because after the Asian economic crisis hit, Indonesian people are starting to protest more against the government, and as Gramsci said, empire does not fall quietly, they turn into monster in their last breath. As his position of power grew weaker, Suharto became even more extreme, inciting hate towards the Chinese minority group in Indonesia, and he even eventually ordered the army to start shooting at the student protesters. Munir helped the student fight against their right for answer for these state crimes, and after Suharto resigned, he went on to help to uncover Indonesia war crime in East Timor, finding mass graves that is filled with bodies as young as 5 years old. This experience made him more and more aware how broken his country is even without Suharto, and it empowered him to do more public activities and to educate people so the movement will still go on even without him. A decision that is almost prophetic in hindsight. In 2004, aware that his understanding of politics is not enough to combat the current corrupt government, Munir had been looking at options to study abroad. He got the opportunity to study in Netherlands, but when he took that flight as a man ready to be more equipped to fight injustice, the plane landed in Netherlands with him already dead. Suci, along with the groups that they founded and mentored, led a long and arduous investigation to his mysterious death. From how the news of his death were delayed, how the Dutch government and the Indonesian government tried to stonewall them from getting the reports, including his autopsy report, just to paint how absurdly difficult this case was and how much the Indonesian government see the people in their country as a joke. Munir died in 2004, And it did not take them long to find out that he was murdered using arsenic, and it did not take them long to find out the murderer. He was Polikarpus, a Garuda airline co-pilot that got into his position because he was an agent for Indonesian intelligence agency. He was found out because he has been stalking basically every notable Indonesian activist that are raising awareness of Indonesian practice of atrocities. The president at that time, Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono, opened an investigation in 2005, but the result of the investigation was never made public or heavily redacted that it's basically useless. Poli was put to trial in 2006, but his sentence kept going down after he was put to prison until his early release in 2014. In 2017, the president at that time, Joko Widodo, declared that the investigation report from 2005 is missing. The case was so long that more than half of the book was detailing the investigation and trial to Munir's murder. But with the assassin conveniently died of COVID in 2020, and the government continuing to ignore their request to reopen investigation despite more evidence being found, currently Munir's death is just an open secret that the government killed him, which opened up a question on how justice for his murder and many other government atrocities must be dealt with. But this is not a story about how everything is hopeless. If anything, it's the opposite. Modern Indonesia past Suharto regime have a cultural response of not stirring the pot, keeping their head down, staying silent to keep the peace. But the organization that Munir grew up in is still educating more and more people, and during the trial Suci has made a weekly protest that also kept having more and more people joining. Munir may have been murdered, but his spirit lives on. These, along with the Jakarta Method, are great books to the history of Indonesia that the mainstream media will try to make sure to never go viral, but it's the kind of history that is so eye-opening that you just have to read. I give this a 5. What do you think? Let me know if I missed anything, so leave your thoughts in the comment below and subscribe to the channel. That's about it. See ya.